I'm Mike Huckman at the Bio Buzz Center, where I am pleased to welcome the CEO of a small company called Cerevast, Brad Zakes, who's also on the board of the Biotechnology Industry Organization. And before I go any further, what is this? This is a product that Cerevast is developing in late-stage clinical studies right now. So why don't we get this out of the way so I can take it off of my head.
You bet, Mike. What we've developed is a operator-independent ultrasound head frame that delivers sound waves into the brain used in patients that are suffering from an ischemic stroke. What our data has shown is that when we combine the acoustic energy of ultrasound with this device in combination with existing drug therapy, we can break up clots in the brain and restore blood flow to the oxygen-starved regions of the brain significantly faster and more effectively than drug therapy by itself.
So this would be put on in the emergency room with a patient who is presented with ischemic stroke.
That's exactly right.
All right, and what's the timeline?
We're in mid-phase 3 currently.
That's late-stage study?
Late-stage study, last clinical trial leading to hopefully FDA approval. If things go according to plan, we could potentially have this product in the market in the United States in 2016.
Great. So you are located in Washington State, but one of your remits on the Bio board, and one of the things you're doing here at the Biotechnology Industry Organization convention this year, is advocating for a couple of bills that are making their way through Congress, in the House and in the Senate. So what can you tell me about those? Why do we need them, and what would they do?
What we're talking about here are the Startup Jobs and Innovation Act that was introduced in the Senate, and then the companion bill, the Partnerships Act, in the House. What this legislation does is it helps mitigate the risk from a health or life science investor's perspective into earlier stage biotech and biomedical companies. The way it does that is by creating these R&D partnership structures, where the investor can generate or take advantage of tax credits and losses over the life of the project, significantly changing the risk profile of their investment in some of these earlier stage companies.
Why is it needed, though? What have you seen, for example, in your company's home state of Washington?
Let's just look at our industry as a whole for a minute, Mike. We're talking about upwards of 10 years development cycle to take a new product from bench to commercial launch, and the cost oftentimes exceeds $1 billion. You compound that with development risk, regulatory risk, reimbursement risk, that becomes a very questionable investment thesis for a life science investor. So what this legislation has the potential to do is significantly change the risk profile for these investments. In Washington State, we're aware of at least a half dozen companies that have either been unable to raise the necessary operating capital to get off the ground altogether, or companies that have promising candidates under development that have simply been unable to raise the necessary operating capital to continue the ongoing development and have gone out of business altogether. So what this legislation has the potential to do is generate additional operating capital for these earlier stage pre-revenue companies so that they can continue the ongoing development of these very promising technologies.
So finally then, Brad, what's the status and what are the next steps in terms of moving this legislation through Capitol Hill?
What we would ask is that people write letters, speak to their local congressmen, congresswomen, their senators, reinforce the importance of this particular legislation so that we can continue to attract the needed operating capital that these companies so desperately need.
All right, Brad Zakes, good luck to you and to Bio in trying to move that legislation forward, and to you and your team at Cerevast with trying to move this the rest of the way through the development pipeline.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Brad Zakes, for joining us here at the Bio Buzz Center.